He joins us on Fridays. He's so generous with his time because he gets nothing for being here. Michael Shure. In fact, it might cost him in a weird way, reputationally. But
right, well, yeah. There is a cost to it, but
these are tough times also for Michael Shure, and I'll tell you why. Because the Niners have hit a little skid, and he is one of the biggest Niners fans I've ever met. And I'm really concerned for them. With all that talent, they seem to not be able to find magnetic north, Michael Shure.
Well, the talent is on the field. On the sidelines, we're not so sure about the talent anymore.
So you think it's a poorly coached team right now?
Well, I think that the head coach is a good football coach, and he designs unbelievable offensive plays, but I don't think he calls them very well.
And so wrong plays at the wrong time.
That's what you've always said, yeah.
Okay.
So, Mark, a lot of people, and these are the things that we now know because we can see one another. A lot of people they build sets to look like a home or an office, but in fact, your home/office does the opposite. It looks like a set.
Well, thank you for saying that. It looks like a quickly cobbled together set because that's what it is. Yeah,
but I mean, it looks like there are like above the windows, there is that there's nothing but space, and the light is not natural light. It's fantastic.
Oh well, I thank you for saying that because it doesn't.
Fantastic.
It doesn't feel fantastic. It feels we're really to use the now off-used metaphor, we're building the plane while we're flying it or whatever. It really is that. So
you've been busted on the job, Mark.
Yeah, I've been busted on the job. So a very good reference to it. It's a fine series, very popular. You should YouTube search it. And, good to see Michael Shure. People that's true. I never thought of that. You usually join by phone on the old radio station, but here people can actually see you. Yeah.
Is it okay to say Michael Shure's cute?
He is cute. I agree. I think it's more than okay.
I would just say, that's probably okay.
Yeah.
Girl, you just woo.
Yeah, girl, you're just you. Ooh, Michael. So Michael Shure, so much happened this week politically, and I'd love to get your drill down on what you feel is most important. I mean, there was a high-profile debate in Pennsylvania. There was the revelations with Trump. You can tell me how you think the new Twitter is going to affect elections going forward. I don't think it'll have any effect in the midterms yet. And then those things that seem to be talking points, I'd love to get to that for the Republicans that have to do with crime. Even though some of the worst crime statistics are in red states. It's a weird thing, but that oftentimes the details aren't important. It's the talking point that carries the day.
And the cities in those red states sometimes in the political dialogue supersede the state itself. So that's a big part of it. You look at New York and you look at what's going on in the tightening of the governor's race there. It's because of New York City. I mean, it's because of Buffalo, and it's because of Rochester, and it's because of rising crime in different places, or the perception that crime is not being attended to, which is, of course, not the reality. But that's what plays on this. So the red state thing doesn't matter as much as the cities that dominate the conversation in some of those red states. And before we get to that, we should talk quickly about Paul Pelosi and just... Well, both how horrible this is and how wonderful it is to know that he's going to be okay. He's having brain surgery. They say he's going to make a full recovery. I don't know the depths of that surgery. But the fact that he's going to have brain surgery is serious enough, and that he's going to make a full recovery. And the assailant, who I believe is 42 years old, has been arrested and charged with homicide, elder abuse, and everything that goes along with that, assault with a deadly weapon. But this reminds me of Gabrielle Giffords, right? It reminds me of making targets out of people, and this call to arms. Was Donald Trump responsible for everyone who went to the Capitol that day? That's a conversation, an argument that people could have. Some people think he had no responsibility. Some people think it wasn't even Trump supporters who were in there. But of the people that seem to be more reasonable and a prevailing wisdom about it is that he was responsible, at least in part, for what happened there. Well, that responsibility and that dialogue extends to what's happening right now in Pacific Heights. And so it's a really, really bad thing. And what we are doing is we are targeting people now. And even if you don't directly say, go to the speaker's house, these words, where is Nancy, those echo exactly what you heard those people on 9/11, on J6 saying to the microphones and to the phones, the telephones the cell phones that were recording it. And it's pretty scary.
Well, and it extends to secretaries of state and election workers. You're seeing record numbers of election workers resign, and they're being replaced by a doggedly determined right-wingers who have essentially intimidated their way into office. I mean, you can Google this. This is not just me heating up the rhetoric. It is absolutely true.
And in history, intimidation, when not taken seriously or not given the due that it deserves, has worked out very poorly. So it's important.
And I also point to those armed, masked dudes who were at the polling place in Arizona. Nobody knew who they were. Nobody still knows who they are. Now there's a police presence there. But this is the new face of these locations that where people vote that are oftentimes. Voters sometimes are averse to law enforcement being there, so it can have a chilling effect.
Yeah, no question. In Pennsylvania, you have policemen at the ballot box, law enforcement at the ballot box as they drop off ballots. There was a story that ran on CNN about a blind 90-year-old woman, them not accepting her daughter, who got out of the car to put it in the ballot into the box, not accepting it unless she actually came and did it. So she had to go back to the car and get it. You're allowed to bring your mother's ballot to the box. There's no exception to that, and it's really bad.
Questions in the chat again for Michael Shure.
Why don't you just text
First of all,
it?
people are saying be careful. Sometimes in these conversations, last Friday, you and I had a conversation, and for whatever reason, the artificial intelligence that monitors everything on YouTube thought that we were saying something that we weren't. They thought we were. I don't even want to repeat what the thing is because
that's interesting.
Yeah, they took down the entire episode because of it. So people are warning us again that this could happen. But look, we have to have a conversation, and so we're going to continue to have it. It was a mistake on the part of YouTube, and we went to appeal it, and we did appeal it, but they stood by the error. They stood by their mistake. It was crazy, but that's kind of the new world we live in.
I'd love to know about this later.
Yeah, so maybe most of the viewers, I reviewed it for them already, so I don't want to review it again right now, but I'll tell you about it off the air. So, but they're asking about Georgia as well. I'm getting questions. So Pennsylvania and Georgia are repeated questions in the chat.
Asking about Georgia, specifically about what I think is going to happen there in the races, or just
I suppose they said talk about Georgia. Was this what's happening in Georgia? Yeah.
Well, I mean, Georgia, I think Democrats are relying on split ballots on the Kemp Warnock voter, and what that means is Brian Kemp is running for re-election as governor. He has what seems to be a comfortable lead over Stacey Abrams for whatever reason, because Stacey Abrams was really a force there for such a long time and is probably credited directly with Joe Biden winning Georgia and Raphael Warnock winning as senator there. And then
because she got out so much of the vote,
she was able to motivate people to vote and also to explain what was going on with the vote. And, she lost a little bit of her stature by never really accepting, not that she should have, because she didn't want to, accepting the results of the election in 2018 that made Kemp governor. But I do think that there are people in Georgia, Republicans in Georgia, who are, discomfited, to say the least, about voting for Herschel Walker, both not necessarily for what he stands for, and that, that if it was just what he stood for, if he was a candidate on paper, so many of these voters would vote for Herschel Walker. But because of what he has become on the trail, the kind of attention he has brought, his real lack of knowledge about the stuff that he's going to be very involved with if he's elected senator, has gotten Republicans, and a number of them I think will do this, and they poll that way, to vote for Kemp for governor and Warnock for re-election to Senate, even though these are not people who would ordinarily vote for Democrats. You also
they're looking at your social media.
Yeah. You have to get 50% plus one vote in order to avoid a runoff, and that would be something that would be very important for Raphael Warnock to do.
By the way, I'll just make this point quickly. Walker is not a Georgian. Yeah, he's a Texan. He was raised in Georgia. He lives in Texas. His compound is in Texas. There are pictures of it all over you can Google this also.
Google it.
So it's this, he's lived, in Texas for a decade. Okay.
Yeah.
So
which is ironic because the Cowboys traded him.
It's
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
So anyway, but he's making it a tight race. I mean, I don't know if he's making it a tight race. Or,
it's not that he's making a tight race. It's a tight Senate, right? If this was let's say it was a 60-40 Senate one way or the other, this race wouldn't be that close. But you have Republicans, national Republicans, telling Georgia Republican voters that their vote may decide control of the Senate. Might not be wrong either. So you're relying on some Republicans to dismiss that and say, I still don't want this guy. But you have to remember, this is a state that has 2 elected Democratic senators. They voted for Joe Biden and gave him their electoral votes in 2020. So there is, in fact, some, history of a Democrat being able to win without a ton of Republican support, which they certainly didn't have in 2020.
Why don't you just text it?
John Smith says, I'm sure that's not his real name, and I respect that, by the way. The YouTube pseudonym, maybe. Or maybe it is his real name. I don't know.
Somebody's got to be named John Smith.
Yeah, somebody's got to be named John Smith. Good point. Maybe it is a real name.
Yeah.
Yeah, apologies for that. I take back that comment. Ask Michael about Florida, specifically the Miami-Dade Latino vote. News has reported they are registering Republican. And it is a weird thing that's happening with the Latino vote. I wonder if you could speak to that, Michael.
Yeah, well, first of all, a lot of the Latino vote in Florida has always registered more Republican than the Latino vote in other parts of the country, largely due to the Cuban population there. What we're seeing and what John's pointing out now is an uptick in the non-Cuban Latino vote registering Republican. There are a couple of reasons for that, and there are a couple of reasons that can be reversed as well. But one of the reasons for it is when Rick Scott was governor of Florida and the hurricanes happened in Puerto Rico, he did an exceptional job of welcoming Puerto Ricans and giving support and showing that Republicans can be compassionate in those times, especially juxtaposed to Donald Trump, who was going in and throwing toilet paper in San Juan. He was bringing people to Florida and making sure that the full force of the state was behind the effort to integrate them, to help them out, to get them to where their family was in northern and central Florida as well. And so I think there is a lot of holdover from that, especially with Puerto Ricans, which make up a good number of Latinos in Florida. The other part of it is there has been an outreach, a religious outreach from Republicans in Florida that has resonated with first and second generation Latinos in that part of the state. And I think also, and playing on race here, is that the Latino and Black populations of Florida don't have a sort of cozy history together, and juxtaposing that and playing on the worst sensibilities of voters there, they've been able to associate one with the other, and that hasn't really worked out well.
It's pointed out by multiple texters on the chat.
Text it?
Right here on YouTube, that juxtapose and juxtaposing are ding words. So there you go. All right. I like to keep track. I don't like to interrupt people when they're speaking. But I
never know whether it's good to be dinged.
It's good. Of course it's good. I mean, it's not. It's neither good nor bad, really. Right. But it's not a bad thing to be dinged, because when you get we just recognize those words that would likely show up on an SAT exam. So I'm sorry, I'm looking at chats while I'm speaking with you. There are also races in the West. Carrie Lake, she's the darling of the GOP. She is a great candidate. I mean, what she spews is utter BS. But she is she looks good. She speaks very well. She's insanely media savvy, and increasingly, I think that carries the day because it's such a media environment.
Well, I mean,
Look
she's
at
very
this.
telegenic. That's what she does for a living and has done for a living.
But she's unflappable too, Michael, I would say. In other words, she knows that thing where she just keeps saying it over and over. You can hammer her with follow-ups. It doesn't matter.
She's like the honey badger, right? Remember that meme of the honey badger? But
okay. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
So, I don't know that I can say that on
yeah, they might get dethroned for that. Yeah. Who knows?
We'll let that go. But
okay.
What?
But I'll send you the I'll send you.
Yeah. Please send the honey badger stuff to me.
The state just to the north of Arizona, much more important than whatever happens in Arizona. It looks like in terms of national politics, what is going to happen in Arizona is that Mark Kelly's going to win that Senate seat. I would imagine the polling looks that way. Yes, it's going to tighten, and yes, Carrie Lake may have brought people to the polls that would not have been there, and they could support Blake Masters. I still think Mark Kelly's going to win. The tight race is in Nevada, where you have Adam Laxalt and Senator Catherine Cortez Masto running in that race. If Cortez Masto loses that race, that could really throw the Senate asunder, and it could challenge Democrat control. What's that, Kim?
And that's a really tight race. That's the one I wrote letters because of that race. So that's the one that it was neck and neck, and the one that had the biggest chance of being flipped.
Kim, how are you?
Unquestionably. And that's true. It's neck and neck. The last numbers I saw were 47-45. It's one of the tougher states to poll in the country. It always has been. So when you look at what the possibilities of that polling mean, if the unions get out the vote in Nevada, in Las Vegas and Reno, which is where the population bases are, it tends to, and it has over the last several cycles, worked well for Democrats. But if they're not able to do that and they can't get excitement going over an off-season Senate race like they do in presidentials, this is the one that could sneak up and really bite the Democrats.
Why is it tough to poll, Michael?
It's been historically tough to poll Nevada because of shift workers, right? Typical polling always happened at supper time, and the shift workers were always, if you get somebody at 6 p.m., you don't know if the people that are the breadwinners, the people that are the voters, the people that are most involved are actually at work at that time or not. So it's hard to. It's always been an elusive crowd, and it makes up a number of people there because Las Vegas is a 24-hour economy and its biggest population basis.
Do we know what the current polling is for that race?
The last I saw was Cortez Masto was up 47-45.
That's still too close for my liking.
No, that it is close, and it's closer than it should be. But by it's not the bluest state in the country either, and so it is bluing, and it is one that the Democrats thought that they could start to take for granted, but they certainly can't right now.
Michael, thank you for joining us. You can see Michael Shure on TYT. You can also see him here on the show every Friday. Very generous. I'll take any other last questions for Michael Shure, even a Niners question if you have any. Anybody?
What does your hat say?
What is the? Oh, it is.
Kim, how are you?
Yeah. It says Under Armour Hockey.
Okay.
Is that a sponsorship deal?
Are you receiving something for that? Yeah.
Believe it. I am getting so much money for this appearance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you a hockey player?
I am, yes, I am. And I don't, this is ridiculous. I play on a team called the Honey Badgers, which is why.
I see why you got the Honey Badgers in there.
Send that link to you, I promise. As soon as
this is, I didn't know that there was really a tie-in all along.
I wasn't plugging my beer league hockey team, I promise.
Yeah, save it for the jury, Michael. All right, look, it's been fun having you here. Thank you for joining us every Friday. Michael Shure, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Go Niners.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Yeah.